Cheers.
Yes. Oh, cheers. Thank you for joining me. Thank you. These eyelashes are a little
They're
extra.
popping.
They're a little extra.
Are they so heavy on your face?
Cute.
Thank you.
So, yeah, they're in the way.
yeah,
So I only just recently stopped wearing a wig.
I'm loving it.
Thank you. I've been bald like
You can
probably like
rock
the
it
last 4
so
years.
good.
Thank you.
So I didn't recognize you.
Yeah.
I was like looking at your Instagram. I'm like, all
wanted
right, what
to-
does she look like? I
I
did not
wanted
know
to
you were that
text you.
short.
Yeah. I'm really sure. I wanted to text you. So, like, before you popped in, I was in the email trying to find your number. And then I was like, oh, I gave her my number.
Oh, did I never
And
text
then
you?
you might have, but that
don't
didn't
know.
cross my mind to think, right?
Yeah.
So I scrolled. I was like, okay, June, I think it was 20th. We talked. Then the iPhone call list like stops.
Yeah.
So I couldn't go back. I was like, I mean, she can't get past me. So I'm like, I'll stand here.
I love it. No, you freaking rock it.
Thank you.
So, and then my name is Jen Hinds, and I do a lot of things. I am a postpartum doula. I am a childbirth educator. Specifically, I teach the evidence-based birth childbirth class. I am a sex educator. I do a little professional development training on the side as well.
She
so
does. I feel professionally developed.
I do relationship coaching. So doula, coach, educator with the niches in there.
What is your day job?
So during the day, I'm not caring for my plants. I do a variety of things, but caregiving is definitely one of them in various forms. So my postpartum doula work is a big piece of that. So caring for, mostly first and foremost, when I tell people about my postpartum doula work, people think that, oh, cute, you get to hold new babies. That's awesome, that's fun. Yes, I love a new baby, but really I'm there to care for the parents.
Yes.
Especially the person that just had the baby.
Yes.
Like they are my first priority of who am I caring for in this scenario.
Because everyone has eyes on the baby.
Yeah. And we love to forget about the person who made those babies.
Yes.
And if there's a partner there, right? Like they're a part of that equation. They're sleep deprived. They're thrown into this new life and new transition.
Right.
So that postpartum work is really big for me, and I do daytime postpartum doula care, and then I do overnights as well.
Okay.
And kind of mix it up. Some families I do both, some families I do just one or the other. I get to nanny super part-time for my really, really good friend, which is very special, that I get to be Gigi a couple times a week. And then in other ways, also outside of being a dog mom.
Oh, I left my dog mom shirt at home.
My dog's she's a whole situation.
Yeah.
But is the education that I do, and I feel like that is kind of another form of caregiving, you know, of like giving people the information that they need and deserve and have a right to, so they can care for themselves through that information.
Do you think you got the proper information on your body growing up?
It's very interesting. I was thinking about this today because I'm a sex educator, I have a master's in sex education, and I feel like the reason, I know that the reason that I went that route was I took a 101 human sexuality class my undergrad year and was blown away by how much I didn't know.
Anything compared to sex ed in middle school or high school? Like, anything compared?
Like nothing. My sex ed growing up was like, we learned about periods and deodorant in fifth grade.
Yes.
And then I remember like scary STD slides in high school, and like that was it. And my parents didn't do any sex education. I grew up with sisters and a mom, and so I knew about periods, and like the period conversation was very big, but nothing about anatomy or why a period happens or why a period doesn't happen or sex and all the ways that can, like, none of that. And so I feel like because I didn't get that was why I was so interested in it growing up, and still to this day, and feeling like that's such a human right to know about your own body that so many people don't get.
And bravo to you for like having the balls to to take that class, you know, and really dive in and know yourself that there was more to know and to learn.
Yeah, and I try now to be that person in the lives of the kids that are in my life. Like, I am Aunt Jen or Gigi who's like buying you the sex ed book of whatever is age appropriate. And to then also give the tools to my siblings and my friends who also don't have the tools or the knowledge or the information or the confidence to have those conversations with their kids. And I feel like our generation like wants to be better at it. They want to have those conversations with their kids.
The want is definitely there.
Yeah, but then they don't know what to do.
The knowledge, like you said, this generation, we know that we don't know all that we're supposed to know.
Yes,
but
exactly.
We want better for the next generation, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this also very much came out of my own experiences, as does a lot of, you know, people who choose to be a doula, a therapist, you know, what have you, was I had my own patterns of relationships that weren't the healthiest and weren't the best. And I didn't always have the best role models either for that, or certainly didn't have anybody giving me direct education about it. And so that was my biggest area of focus in grad school, was domestic violence, healthy relationships. What does that look like? You know, which seems so basic, but we don't actually teach about it the way that we need to be teaching about it. My first job out of grad school was working for a domestic violence agency, doing education and training, down from teaching kindergartners and elementary school kids about feelings and expressing those feelings and how to be a good friend and how to say no and how to accept no from someone else, right? Like, so foundational, basic skills to talking to teenagers about healthy dating relationships and what teen dating violence looks like.
Jen, you really jumped in to the nitty gritty.
I really did. I'm like, this is what I care about so much. I think it was always there. I was always like a good student, but I think, you know, our like classic educational systems, it's like you learn math and reading, and then I think when I got into college, it kind of like blew everything up, where it was like I really get to dive into the stuff that I love and the stuff that I care about, like marriage and families and kids and babies and relationships. And I think a lot of it was like being able to learn about my own journey, my own experiences, my own self and my own family. And then how can I translate that to help others? One of my favorite, you know, I've done a lot of trainings and conferences and always learning, but my favorite that I ever took was this trauma training that I took. I was like weeks and weeks and weeks long, and it was meant for professionals who are already doing this work, and now it's something that I apply to so much of what I do.
Right now I'm just trying to learn as much as I can, and sitting down with you right now is like a first row seat peek into like the people who are doing the work. So thank you. Thank you.
Of course. And there's so many more out there, right, who have done more than me and who work with different populations or have a different area of specialty, and now my favorite way to learn is through other birth workers.
Yeah.
You know, and having those connections to the IBCLCs and the full spectrum doulas and the postpartum and the birth and the midwives and all of those people. And it's like, there's so much information out there and there's so many experiences out there.
Yeah.
You know, the learning's never ending.
It's scary, but I want it so badly.
Yeah. I think you'll be amazing. I think we go in thinking like we have to know everything, we have to have practiced everything, and the reality is like your biggest job is just to hold space.
Yeah.
And you know how to do that.
Okay.
You know,
yeah,
like
that makes me feel better.
you know how to be a comforting presence.
Yeah.
You know how to be an advocate, which is frankly not my strongest suit.
Yeah.
And you do know something about birth.
Yeah.
more than you're probably giving yourself credit.
All right.
But it is. It's like you just have to like rip the Band-Aid and do that first one to show yourself like, oh, I can do this, you know?
Yeah.
And as long as you can be a calming presence, you're doing your job.
Okay.
And you're keeping everyone fed and hydrated?
Yes.
Done. Check.
Food.
Done.
Ah.
All right, back to it.
Tell me how it is walking that thin line of, okay, I'm an evidence-based educator. I know this, and this because I've done the research and this is my calling. Like, I have the knowledge.
Yeah.
How is it walking between that and your client's wishes and how they feel in the moment? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's hard, and I think that is a common struggle of birth doulas is not letting their own bias or their own preferences come into the room. And one of the coolest things that I learned when I became an evidence-based birth instructor was evidence-based care is based off of 3 pillars, actually.
Okay.
So it's not just, well, what does the research say? Like, that's just one piece of it.
Yeah.
Another piece is, what is the client's preferences and wishes?
Okay. I didn't know this.
Yeah. And then the other piece is, do you have an informed healthcare provider that's up on the research and that's also respectful and all of that? And so that piece of what's their preference is a part of evidence-based care, and I think that gets lost on a lot of people. And so if my client feels empowered and like they knew what decision they were making and why, then I'm happy for them. And I think it's also helpful that I've seen birth happen in so many ways, and it can all be empowering or it can all be traumatic.
Yeah.
You know, like a hospital birth with an epidural can be a very empowering experience, and I've seen it. And an induction can be a very empowering experience.
Thank you.
And a cesarean can be empowering, and a home birth can be empowering.
Thank you.
And all of those things can also be a traumatizing experience.
Yes.
And so, as long as the people I work with feel like they weren't in the dark, they didn't come out on the other side saying, I had no idea, X, Y, and Z, then I'm happy with it. And I really don't feel one way or another. You know, if they come out on the other side feeling like, coulda, shoulda, woulda, then like, yeah, I might feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you come into the field knowing that that's the way it was supposed to be, or was there someone or a course that introduced you?
I didn't.
To this?
No. I think the more I started learning about evidence-based care, and then once I became an evidence-based birth instructor, that's a part of the course that we actually teach the clients who go through the evidence-based birth childbirth class. Is like the first week we talk about evidence-based care. What is it? What is it not?
Right.
And how do you know if you're receiving that sort of care or not? Because not everybody receives evidence-based care in this country, unfortunately. And so, and it's and it's not accessible to everyone. You know, like I think it's really easy for birth workers to say like, we'll just get a different provider. A different provider is not always available,
right,
depending on where you live, what you can afford, what your insurance is, what your health conditions may or may not be. This might be your one option. And so how do you navigate that?
Right.
Like, that's your option.
If you can find a birth doula, a postpartum doula, like take it from me and take it from Jen, who is doing the work. Allow yourself that support.
Yeah, and I think what I hate to see are the people who don't do it until they've had a traumatic experience, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a
look, don't look at me, Jen.
That's not shade on you. It's like I want these like first-time parents to hear you say it does not matter your plan. It does not matter how amazing your partner is,
right? Because
they need a doula too.
Yes.
Get the education, get the birth doula, get the postpartum doula. Like prepare. You know, prepare, prevent, and it won't be a regret.
No.
Yeah.
No. Oh, Jen.
I hope that didn't sound like shade on you.
No, it didn't.
I'm also the type of person who I just go into problem solving mode. Like when I'm stressed, I'm not like an emotional person, and who knows what kind of trauma response that is, right? I'm like problem solve mode. Like what are we doing? Let's get it done. And so I'm very much like the calm and the like, hold on a second. But I've definitely been the bridge to say like, let's pause and talk about what's going on here. And most of the time it's around, are we heading into C-section or are we discussing induction before labor has even happened? And I think just when people are approached with those decisions, it's like the world is spinning and it comes to a pause, and it's really hard to make decisions.
Absolutely.
And so if I can be that person to be like, we're gonna come back down to earth and we're gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
We're not rushing anywhere. This is not an emergency. We have time to make a decision.
Yeah.
Here's the information that I know. Here's the pros and cons. And here's what I've seen before too, right? And so something that I think of with that I think is helpful when you talked about like, you know, learning from your boots on the ground work was something about, I had a really dear college friend of mine. You know, we had been really, really close in college, and then she came back and took my evidence-based birth childbirth class with me, and then she was facing this decision about induction. And she was saying, well, I want to go in at this time because blah, 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 blah. And I was saying, well, typically they do it at night so that this can happen and this can happen and this can happen. And once we had that conversation, and not saying like you need to go in tonight, but just like this is what typically happens and this is why, because they didn't explain that to her. She was able to go, oh, okay. And it totally changed the trajectory of her birth. Thankfully for the better.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it's like when we're at a crossroads, I can be the person that's like, all right, we're just gonna take a moment.
You're gonna ground the roller coaster.
Yep. We're just gonna zoom in.
I can appreciate that.
Talk about it all.
You know? Just that.
Yes. Sometimes we just need that time to like ground down.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, especially in medical settings, it sounds like an emergency.
Yes.
And it feels like an emergency. And it's not. If there was an emergency, there would not be a discussion.
Yeah.
We would just be going into it, right? And so I really try to remind people that of like, okay, we're gonna pause, we're gonna talk about it, and then I'm gonna take you through the steps of what this is gonna look like.
Yeah.
So you know what to expect, and I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna be doing this, right? And I think about my clients that have maybe been sent back for a C-section or sent back because maybe the placenta was retained, and I'm going to be here and I'm going to be with dad or partner and baby, and this is my role right now for them. So I approach my kind of consultations, right, with people who are interested. I say, well, what do you think you need? Like, do you need alone time? Do you need time with your older kiddo? Do you need a lot of like education because you're nervous and this is your first baby and you're like, I don't know how to change a diaper, give a bath, do anything? Do you just need some sleep? Do you need someone to keep you fed? And so I really let my clients drive the bus there.
Yeah.
And it's very individualized to each family, and sometimes that changes, you know. So I had a client recently who, this was her second baby, and she really thought that, you know, she was like, I don't so much need the education, but I could just really use some time to be with my older child and maybe like get some food cooked. And what she really found out was she was getting plenty of time with her older child. She needed alone time. And I would go there and she would just kind of disappear. And one of the greatest things about a postpartum doula is you do not need to entertain us. You do not need to feed us. Right? People feel obligated sometimes when their friends
because
come over.
someone is over,
Yeah, their friends come over, their family comes over, and I try to remind them, don't feel obligated. They should be there to help you. But especially as your postpartum doula, you do not need to chit-chat with me if you don't want to. If you want to, because it feels nice to talk to an adult, absolutely, I will chit-chat with you. But it's really dependent, you know, and sometimes people just need sleep, and that's it.
Right.
And then that's all I do, is help them sleep.
A break from the stimulation.
Yep, exactly. So I love it because my motto is like, I want people to take childbirth education classes and to have their birth plan and to have their birth doula, and all of that is so, so important. And I always say postpartum, this is when it gets real.
I was about to say that's when the work starts, right?
Yeah, I was like, this is when it gets real. And you have a whole human to take care of on top of taking care of yourself, taking care of your partnership if you have that, taking care of your home and your pets and your other children. And like, that is tough, and people don't always think about that.
No.
They think about the cute nursery and where am I gonna have my baby? And then they're like, oh dang, I gotta take this baby home with me. My name is Jen Hinds, and I do a lot of things. I am a postpartum doula. I am a childbirth educator. Specifically, I teach the evidence-based birth childbirth class. I am a sex educator. I do a little professional development training on the side as well.
She does. I feel professionally developed.
I do relationship coaching. So doula, coach, educator with the niches in there.
Where do we find you? What's your social media?
So I am on TikTok, Instagram, I guess Facebook, kind of, not really. My handle is j.hi, hi.m.ed. So j-hi, M-E-D. Doing like J-Lo, but I'm J-Hi.
Ah, J-Hi.
J-Hi, and then M-E-D. My expensive letters after my name.
Very expensive. She worked hard for them.
So we have to show them off.
And we will keep them, yes.
We have to show them off. And then my website is jhimed.org.
But,
yes.
Well, thank you, Jen.
Thank you so
for
much.
joining me here at Attico.
You are going to be an amazing doula.
Oh, stop.
I'm going to start referring people to you. You're going to get some referrals in your inbox tomorrow.
Thank you. I'm excited, and it's really been great having you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yay. Thank you, babe.